Next on Worcester News tonight, new developments in the murder of a mother and her 3 young children. The suspect, who was already in custody, is now charged with murder. Plus, it was only a drill. A mock explosion in Worcester shows the work first responders and emergency teams must do. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Olivia Lemon. A man charged with lying to investigators in connection to the deaths of a mother and her 3 children is now charged with murder. The Worcester County DA's office says Matthew Locke killed Sarah Bermudez and her children in March. Our Rosalind Flaherty spoke with Sarah's husband today and joins us now with more. Rosalind?
Olivia, it's been 6 months since his family was murdered, and now he wants to know why his own cousin is responsible.
This cut so deep to lose a wife and 3 kids. So deep.
Moses Bermudez holds back emotion when learning his cousin, Matthew Locke, is charged with the murders of his family.
To have this happen, I'm saddened that it's my own family that happened to be involved in this.
Bermudez's wife, Sarah, and their 3 children were found dead in their home in West Brookfield in March. District Attorney Joe Early Jr. says the victims were stabbed. Court documents say Locke's DNA was found on the body of one of the young victims, and his car was seen leaving his home in Ware before the murders and returning home afterwards.
It's been a very difficult case for everyone involved.
Locke is charged with 4 counts of murder. He's been held on $10,000 bail since March for misleading the investigation.
I think it is a big relief that finally we're brought some closure to the case. It's still not closed.
Bermudez says there has been speculation for months he was involved in the murders. The DA says they are not looking into him.
People just sit in front of their computers all day, overthinking things, and it kind of bothered me at first because we had to be patient with the law enforcement. I did want someone to be held accountable for what happened.
Bermudez now wants to know why a family member is responsible.
It's hard, but I just gotta move on and look forward to my time when I see him in heaven.
Now, the DA says the investigation remains active, and if anyone has any information regarding Locke to come forward, he is held without bail and will be back in court next month. Rosalind Flaherty, Worcester News Tonight.
Tuesday night was primary night in Massachusetts, and it produced some decisive results in some of Central Mass's big races. In Leicester and Worcester, there was a 3-way race for Democrats running in the 17th Worcester House District. David LeBeuf was the winner, beating Stu Loosemore and Pam Jem. LeBeuf says he's glad his message resonated with voters.
It's a nice thing to know that we could work in bold coalitions. We could talk about really your bread and butter issues for the district, and it resonated with the voters. And I'm really excited about the victory that we had, the amount of votes that we received, and I'm really excited about getting to work for November because our district deserves a representative who believes in the dignity and respect of all of our residents.
And LeBeuf will face Republican Paul Fullen in the November general election. The 17th Worcester District seat is being vacated by Republican Kate Campanelli. Campanelli coming out on top in the race for the Worcester County Register of Deeds seat. She ran against State Representative Kevin Kuros in the Republican primary. Campanelli will face Democrat Catherine Toomey of Worcester in the November election. In January, incumbent Anthony Vigliotti announced he was stepping down after holding the position for more than 40 years. Republican Tracy Lavorne will be challenging 21-year incumbent Jim McGovern in November in the 2nd Congressional District. The Grafton resident faced fellow Republican Kevin Powers in Tuesday's primary election. Lavorne says she wants to focus on what everyone has in common and build bridges. The race for the state's 3rd Congressional District is still too close to call, with the latest numbers putting Lori Trahan just 52 votes ahead of David Coe. Perry Russum reports.
In a field of 10, we are now down to 2.
Now that 100% of the votes have been counted, I'm confident that I am your Democratic nominee.
Lori Trahan claiming victory today in the 3rd Congressional District race.
This race proves what we knew all along, that every vote truly counts.
Trahan leads Dan Coe by about 50 votes, but those numbers could change in the coming days. The state's election division tells us the provisional ballots still have to be counted. those that had eligibility concerns yesterday.
You know, it's just about making sure that all the votes are counted.
Coe stayed away from making any public appearances today. In a statement, his campaign team says it is clear that the final outcome of the election will not be known for a few days.
So I think the Coe campaign is right to say that the Trahan campaign is being a little presumptuous.
John Claverius is a former political consultant and current assistant professor of political science at UMass Lowell. He says recounts usually end up going in favor of the candidate already ahead, but there are some cases where the person in second wins.
I would be extremely surprised if we do not see a recount request on his behalf. 50-some votes is too narrow a margin to give up a congressional seat.
The Coe team has until Friday to ask for a recount. This all has to be done within the next 2 weeks so the names can be printed on the absentee ballots. In Lowell, Perry Russum, Worcester News Tonight.
It was only a drill, but for first responders and staff at UMass Memorial Medical Center, responding to an explosion is something they need to be ready for. September is Emergency Preparedness Month, and the hospital says conducting a lifelike drill is required. Our Chandler Walsh joins us now with more on today's scenario. Chandler?
Olivia, the drill involved the UMass Memorial Emergency Response Team, including Worcester EMS. The purpose is to test their skills and preparedness if a mass casualty incident were to happen. First responders arrive at Regatta Point in Worcester, where 53 people have been injured in an explosion.
There were two food trucks that had come to serve breakfast. While they were in front of the truck in line and the chef was going to light the grills, there was an explosion.
The victims are inflatable dummies. It's part of a required disaster drill at UMass Memorial Medical Center.
Another guy behind the boat over here.
On arrival, Worcester EMS evaluate the victims, tending to injuries noted on carts. They apply tourniquets and tag the mannequins with colors according to their condition.
Red is priority 1 patients, the most life-threatening or critical patients.
The victims are transported to the medical center by priority, where hospital staff continue the drill. In this scenario, 2 have died and about 20 are in critical condition.
Low rupture, head trauma. We had many patients that went up to the operating room to have surgery. Some will be in the ICU.
While this is happening on the ground, a team in the control center oversees operations, managing resources and space in the emergency department. UMass Memorial says preparing for this type of scenario is relevant, with an increase in mass casualty incidents nationally and worldwide.
We are obligated to make sure that we're ready to respond for that. You know, we saw what happened in Vegas and other areas.
It just makes sense for each EMS system to have some level of preparedness for that.
The drill lasted several hours today and was followed by a debrief for UMass to discuss what didn't work and what needs to be improved. Chandler Walsh, Worcester News Tonight.
Patients at UMass Memorial Children's Medical Center get a chance to climb into a real race car Wednesday. It's part of the New England Race Car Association's Race Against Leukemia. The group started the race when a member of their team was diagnosed with leukemia and treated at UMass. They say it's nice to see patients outside of their rooms experiencing something fun they don't see every day.
It's just something about a car with numbers on it that just makes you smile. It's something about a racing helmet. I mean, I'm 34 years old. It still does the same thing to me. So it's just great to see the kids light up and bring a little joy to their day.
It definitely provides a sense of normalcy for him, just being able to get out just like normal kids would do in the summertime. And he loves cars, so this is an even more awesome thing that we're able to do here.
The drivers also got a chance to go inside with the patients and color cars and helmets. A robot created by a team at WPI could help protect the Caribbean from a lionfish invasion. They say the species is damaging critical reefs and consuming valuable fish supplies. Our Brittany Schaefer joins us now to explain. Brittany?
Olivia, the lionfish can eat up to 8 times its own body weight in fish and has no natural predators. It's why a team at WPI is hoping to make the hunter the hunted.
That is like the buoyancy compensator.
A team of 4 students at Worcester Polytechnic Institute are tackling the issue of an invasive species.
I saw lots of lionfish in the Caribbean, and I saw all the damage that they were doing So thought that this would be an interesting project for the students as well as an interesting challenge.
The lionfish, typically found in the Atlantic and Caribbean, have no natural predators. The females can produce 30,000 eggs every 4 days, and they are overpopulated. Associate Director of the Robotics Engineering Program, Craig Putnam, says something needs to be done.
They eat pretty much everything in sight, so they're doing a tremendous amount of damage to the native reef fish and therefore the reefs themselves.
It's why students in the course last year and a new team are developing a robot to identify and kill lionfish. But the project comes with challenges like controlling depth levels of the robot and having it navigate the reef on its own.
Last year's team, they never got the robot. They were just working on the mechanism to actually harvest the lionfish. And so we wanted to jump in right away and, start looking for funding for a robot.
The undergrads say developing a final prototype may take some time, but it's motivating knowing they could help solve this issue.
It's really interesting seeing how computer science can be applied to numerous other things. So, for example, helping solve a biology problem.
We are becoming those innovators who are changing the future and finding this problem to solve.
Putnam hopes the final robot is completed by next spring, and the students are hoping for a field trip down to the Caribbean to test out the robot. And Olivia, I think we need to go down with them to report, don't you?
Yes, definitely sounds exciting. Thank you, Brittany. A plan to change the landscape in Western Massachusetts. A $650 million water park and resort spa is in the works off the Palmer exit on the Mass Pike. Winthrop Knox and Michael J. D'Amato announcing the plan Wednesday. They say it will draw visitors from as far as 300 miles and include a hotel, 2 indoor water parks, and other indoor-outdoor sports and recreation facilities. A youth tobacco and nicotine prevention bill is signed into law in an effort to target youth who may be susceptible to smoking. Senator Michael Moore announced the passage of the legislation. He says tobacco use and nicotine addiction remains the leading cause of preventable illness and premature death in Massachusetts. Moore says 9 in 10 cigarette smokers begin using before age 18. The newly signed law raises the minimum legal sales age for all tobacco products to 21.
Build upon the 2016 legislation that was passed that allowed the Attorney General to establish more public health regulations as far as the sale of these nicotine products. And now that we've seen the effects of that, it now has allowed us to build upon that.
And the legislation was signed into law by Governor Charlie Baker in July.